we are required to be kind to the life forms and that are around us as an individual being. Ahwint is a word that we have that is to say kindness. But the kindness that our people talk about is a word that has its origin with the way that the holy people have treated the Dene throughout their history. And the holy people have always treated us a certain way, which is that we could recognize that as with kindness and great understanding and great love and great patience. And it is that ahwint, the ahat, is probably some of the words that have been used to the indanek ahat is some of the words that are used to describe how the holy people have treated the Dene throughout the history. And so the important thing about this word, ahwint, is to say, do things like the holy people have done for you. Ahwint. So it is that we are required to be kind to the life forms and that are around us as an individual being, that we be kind in a way to plants, to vegetation, that we don't just abuse them in any way, and to use them with a special understanding of kindness. There are sometimes you just might harvest the leaves of vegetation, or sometimes you might just collect the flower or the seeds, or sometimes even just the stem or just the root of the plant. And so there are certain kindnesses in that are extended to vegetation, especially when you're out there collecting herbs and so on. There are certain ways to treat the vegetation. And as far as other life forms, insects, birds, and animals, it's the same thing. You display that kindness and you express it to the life forms. But the one that is the most important, of course, is the idea of how you treat your fellow five-fingered being. Now, the word five-fingered being is a reference to the humankind, or the human being, and it can be either male or female. But that kindness is very important to extend toward your fellow person. And it is that there are ways to talk to your mother, there are ways to talk to your father, there are ways to talk to your siblings, whether they be a boy or a girl. And there are certain things that you cannot say to your mother. There are certain things you cannot say to your sister. There are certain things you cannot say to your brother or to your father. But the thing about it is that kindness, that is to be merciful, to be gentle with in your words and in the way you respond to people. And so it is to act and do like the holy people toward other people. That is to mean follow the pattern and the teaching of kindness. And that is very extensive as your relationship with other life forms and with people in your family and people throughout your community and people within your own clan. As I mentioned, kindness to plants and insects and birds, I always remember the kindness that my father showed to his horses and to the cattle. He loved them and he accepted them, and the pet cat and the pet dog and that, he always had special names for them, and he loved them and they loved him. And he was always, when he would ride off on his horse somewhere, the dogs would follow him. And he had names for them, and they enjoyed being around him. And the horses and that, of course, he would sometimes had ways to call to a horse way out there in the field, and the horse would come to him. And sometimes I see people with an apple or some kind of grain in their hand, but my dad, he didn't have to have an apple or grain in his hands. He would just call to his horse and they would come to him. And the kindness that he showed them, rubbing behind their ears and under their chin and rubbing their nose and patting them down, the kindness that he showed to animals. And that is the things that I learned from my father as far as how you are to always extend kindness to animals. As far as taking an animal for food and that, I always remember that Myself, I wasn't very good at this when I was tending sheep, and somebody would say, let's take that one and butcher it for this event. I had become very attached to that particular sheep, and I didn't like to see them take that animal there and butcher it. So sometimes I would just leave. And after everything was taken care of, the butchering was performed and finished, and the cooking of the mutton would take place, I would have to think of it completely in a different way. And so I understand, you know, the kindness in that when they showed to an animal when they were preparing it for butchering. I remember my grandmothers and my male relatives and that when they would go to slaughter the animal, that they would be mumbling a certain set of words and that to say thank you for being what you have become. Now we're going to use you, and we promise to use every portion of your body. I was very young when I learned that there are ways to create happiness. The joy in that comes from what we do as far as living in this world, the joy of having family, the joy of having children, and the happiness that comes about when your children begin to develop and their own personalities and their own behavior and their own achievements and their success. Those are the things that produce the happiness. But before all of that can take place is that kindness is very much a part of the way that you instruct your children. And when you instruct your children, sometimes you have to do it individually. You can't instruct your children in front of each other, and especially when it's constructive criticism. And so kindness is so very important in rearing your families and taking care of them and making sure that they take advantage of the many opportunities that are available to them, and to praise them properly and to always express kindness to the children, and especially to the mother. Mothers must always have kindness extended to by family members, especially the husband. Kindness is so very important. Kindness is something you display. It's not something you just mention, and it's got to be seen. And so it is that with the spouse relationship, the spouse has to be kind to each other in front of their children, and even in private, that they learn that kindness is so very important to the family. And that was the way that we were taught, and those are the things that we were told.